Thank you, Jeannie, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to kick off and open your conference. So what I share today might challenge your assumptions, but none of it is essential by conventional means. I do believe it's critical if you care genuinely about rethinking AI and what it means to humanity and our work. I'm not here to talk about AI solutions to problems. I'm not here to personify AI, talking about agents, automation, or anything that AI can do for us. Instead, this talk is about people and genuine collaboration and rethinking our relationship to work and intelligence, and perhaps what intelligence means in work. I wrote the Synth Manifesto last year to frame AI pragmatically. Today goes deeper than that. The QR code there is for context. So that's the Synth Manifesto. I recommend that you scan it and have a look at it. It was very much written for people in government and comes from a lot of my experience over the past 7+ years of consulting and helping people integrate it into their workflows in a way that isn't going to break their bank. I won't be talking much about synth roles since you can just read about it. And like I said, we'll be going further. I will be talking about people. I'll be talking about what work is. And I hope I won't be the only person doing the talking. So if you have a question today, genuinely, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, as throughout the talk, I will actually ask questions of you and I have a microphone. So be ready. I'll start off fairly scripted because there are some points that I really want to get across that I think are important for this audience. And this talk is collaborative because what I'm really going to discuss here doesn't really require prior knowledge, but it does require us to challenge some entrenched assumptions. And your participation really helps us explore that, and rather than taking our word, our text, as gospel. So our conversation today is structured around 3 clear ideas as written in the program. The first is the subtle difference between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. The second is knowledge, reasoning, and know-how. And I want to add to that, know what and know why. The third is how these come together to create truly high-performing teams, which is one of my specialties. So I believe these are actually fundamental if you are planning to build anything involving artificial intelligence. That could be a product, that could be something to do in automation, an agent, or it could be if you're just trying to integrate it within your team. I hope by the end of this talk that you will have a more nuanced understanding of the very thing that this conference is all about, artificial intelligence, and a better understanding of how we as leaders, because we all are here since you're at this conference, can work to change the world for the better rather than worse. And I'll be challenging you actually to have empathy and compassion for each other, including machines. So where does this all begin? This picture was taken roughly where I was born. There was no hospital out here, so my parents drove to Darwin and back. It was the town of my first memories where I was born, Jabiru, Kakadu National Park in Arnhem Land. The first memories here feel so powerful that sometimes I can't believe if they are real. There's a dead bilby that was in our driveway, almost boiling from the summer heat. Being held in my mother's arms, awkwardly grasping one of those long jam donuts, grasping it, battling against gravity. I still remember the town bakery in the foreground before vast lands stretching out behind it before reaching the escarpment as carved by the rainbow serpent. And flocks of birds so immense that they appear like clouds gracefully descending into the wetlands below. I had no idea at the time how deeply grateful I would become for this land, for my parents choosing to immigrate here, of all places in the world. I'm grateful for the city here on Ngunnawal land where I studied, founded my companies, and where we gather today. I genuinely believe I wouldn't be where I am here if I was in any other city in Australia. With utmost respect, I acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of this land which we live and work, and pay my deepest respects to Indigenous elders past, present, and emerging. It's impossible to ignore that we stand on stolen land. Sovereignty was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. We cannot overlook the atrocities committed against the Aboriginal and Torres Strait people, nor the colonial structures and policies still impacting lives today. Innovation is not neutral. It emerges from stories, culture, and lived experience. So let's honor the original storytellers of this land who have been innovating sustainably for tens of thousands of years. Let us respect, listen, and genuinely learn from their approach to innovation, which, importantly for today's conversation, focuses deeply on passing wisdom through storytelling rather than merely transferring knowledge through frameworks and reports. We can all be better and more impactful innovators if we just remember that. Groundbreaking, disruptive scientific discoveries and engineering breakthroughs are inherently dual use. This is why the bomb matters here. It reminds us that the first impression of a technology matters greatly. Artificial intelligence, like the internet and the bomb, is a scientific and engineering breakthrough. I believe it's actually the only disruptive technology since the internet. Fission ignited the atomic era. The internet started the information age. Artificial intelligence completes that information age, and I believe it starts the knowledge era. So this postcard here was probably the first time I did something that was standing up for my values back in 2017 during my PhD at nuclear physics here. I saw this very powerful image, and to that time I was studying as a scientist, and it was very much, and I actually was executive of radiation protection societies, working a lot with making sure that things are safe. And I noticed that there was still this nature of, we know what's right, it's all clean, it's all good. But we never really acknowledged that we literally bombed people. And this is something that I thought, you know what, as a young scientist, we need to be able to actually acknowledge that history and do better. Otherwise, how are we going to actually move forward? It's something that I feel very passionate about as a nuclear physicist, and I actually dropped out of my PhD to move into AI because it's the emerging field of science. But I wanted to move there because how we start using AI, that first impression matters so much. We could have had clean energy if we didn't have this cultural legacy. So over here, I decided during Beer Club that I would grab this postcard and do a little speech to all of the nuclear physicists and make a pledge that never again will we ever support nuclear weapons testing. And it was pretty easy to get everyone in the room to say yes to that. And they each wrote a letter here. So these are all nuclear physicists from ANU that are, many of them are still there. Some of them have gone overseas now that are still working. So fission was discovered, which is what made the bomb, by the way, fission. It was discovered in the midst of World War. And I wrote this a couple days ago. I don't know how relevant it is still right now, but thankfully we're not in a war like we were back then. And, you know, first impressions really, really do last. So I really want to encourage us to not let perfection get in the way of doing good here, especially as policymakers, as people who are afraid of potentially using these things to do good, because they're not afraid. And once that first impression's out there, well, then good luck trying to do anything with it. We really could have had clean energy. There was a bright new world, and we might be at the same place right now. OpenAI actually just got funded $2 million to be able to integrate their artificial intelligence into US military systems for automated decision making, despite that being going against their original sort of plans. There was a silent thing that they did in 2024 to change their structure so that they could do that, and now it's happening. So don't let inaction here make the space for the incorrect action. And the cultural costs otherwise could really be immense. Really. I don't want to see an entire field of science again, maybe the second time. Maybe it's a bit personal because the first one I went into had this legacy get destroyed. The speed of us doing these things genuinely does matter. We need to keep our voices out there of the positive work that we do. So let's assume that things can actually be done good, because they probably can. And hopefully through this talk, I start to get you a bit of a mindset to know how it can be done good and move on to doing them. And I think as the adults and leaders of this world, we really must live the future we want to see as we very much define it. So Marie Curie said, "Nothing is to be feared, only to be understood." So let's understand, empathize, and lead with not fear, but clarity, conviction, and courage. Okay, so now we're getting to the part which is about intelligence. So artificial intelligence isn't arriving, it's emerged and evolving. And this is where I'm going to start getting interactive. Before we dive deeper, does anyone disagree or have anything to say with that statement so that we can ground our discussion early? If nobody's going to say anything, I will point out to Jeannie, who said that generative AI was not intelligence. Do you want to talk and say what you mean about that?
Sure. I'm happy to say generative AI is an intelligence. And here we may actually have a really interesting discussion, because I think that from my perspective as someone who's interested in ethics is I personally think it's really important not to anthropomorphize artificial intelligence. It's a technology that's built on statistics. And I worry about us losing ourselves to AI. And one of the ways we don't lose ourselves to AI is not to pretend AI is anything like us, would be my answer. Thank you.
That's a good answer. Does anyone want to say anything to that? Who has used AI here? Who used it today? And yesterday? Okay, cool. So about 50%. Do you think it's intelligent? Lots of people saying no. Okay. You said no. Sorry, I pointed you out. What do you think intelligence is?
I think social context is a big part of intelligence, and as much as large machine models try to get the context, I gave Copilot a go this morning to write a really good executive summary for me and spent 20 minutes fixing it because it didn't get the context of the 1,000 words I'd already written. And I thought I'd given it enough to help me with a good executive summary. But humans have social context and are emotionally intelligent. I don't see that in any of the AI tools I've worked with.
Have you tried chatting to a baby?
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we can start to add nuance here is expanding what intelligence we expect that we want to get out of these systems. One of the most important things, I think, when we're using AI, when I ask somebody how they want to use AI, it's like I actually ask them, what do you want the AI to get out? And you have to give a context. It's like actually a big part of what I'm going to go through here. Does anyone else want to say anything about intelligence? Oh, wow, awesome.
Oh, thanks. Could be random, could be not. About the talking to a baby, I actually did. I talked to my eldest daughter when she was 1 day old.
Yeah.
And I had to, because various birth feed defects, I had to tell her to stop doing a thing. And 24 hours old, she stopped doing that thing, which saved her life.
Yeah. Our brains are phenomenal, really. Yeah, please.
So much. It's really just a comment around sort of innate intelligence that humans are born with. We're born with a body intelligence. We're born with an intelligence that hasn't been programmed into us by, being alive. And I think that's very different to a machine.
Yeah, that's very true. We do have a lot of intelligence, and I think more and more the, epigenetic knowledge that we contain within us is very true. Who has seen this? Here. Okay. Who are you all data scientists? No? Pardon? Analyst. Great. Okay. So this is called the data information knowledge wisdom, like little triangle. You can look it up. It got in vogue in 2018, 2019 amongst consultants here, like talking to government and selling their data science skills to government, and talking about machine learning a lot, where everything was like, we can use machine learning to be able to get insights, to gain this wisdom, so to speak. And I think that this is a really important triangle that I'm going to go over, and I've actually always expanded. I think it was just not enough. And the thing I'm going to share is something that I would have actually considered my most valuable intellectual property, which is literally just the philosophy, because it really makes a big difference to how we can potentially frame things. So I think that it takes intelligence to go up every step of this here. And I'm going to define what each step is. It takes intelligence, just like what sort of intelligence and what are we good at? What can machines do? What can an algorithm do? And there's also, when we're talking about humans versus artificial intelligence, a big aspect of it will be whether machines can experience their own reality. They can't right now, I would argue, because they don't have a form of agency. If that changes, things might change, but they definitely don't have agency like we do, and that will cause a huge clear barrier on where we should actually use AI versus where we need to help it. So this is what I call beyond wisdom. So we're going to go data, information, knowledge beyond wisdom, but I'm going to talk about each step. On the left-hand side here, we have what we have, things that we have. So starting here, we have data. That's our little data there, little lines. And the right-hand side is what we can do with it. So when we have data, the first and only thing we really can start doing is putting structure to it. So it's like, oh, cool, we're going to put it into little categories. And we can keep doing that until we might have enough that we can call this a set of information. These are my definitions, by the way, and part of my philosophy that allowed me to really make it a lot clearer how I can actually weaponize AI for good, use it as a technology rather than just a tool, because I do believe we're going beyond a tool. So once we have information, what can we do? We can start to make definitions. So we can start saying, hey, this is a triangle. Like, this is like making your words. This is your corpus of words. After we've done that for a while, we get even really good at it. Like, we can then do what I'm calling creating knowledge. So what we have now is a library of knowledge once we have enough information and definitions. And this is where I think it gets very exciting. With knowledge, I think it's really powerful because knowledge allows us to be productive. I can give a recipe to somebody with some knowledge, and it can go ahead and produce a thing like a box, which is great. A lot of our intellectual property is based on this idea of knowledge, which is around this very clear actually idea that I have enough things to describe it in a way, defined in a way that you can just produce the outcome. And that's where a lot of the world is, industrialization in a way. But we can go further, and I believe that once you've produced enough, and once you observe that again, that's when you start to gain a bit more wisdom. And once you've got that wisdom, you then get this idea that, hey, I can make something new. I can construct something. And once you've done that, you've constructed enough, you've played around enough, which is really important. You played around with your knowledge and you had agency to kind of do what you want with it. Then you can stand above that and you can gain vision. And with that vision, and only then, you really have the space to invent, to create new things. And with that new data from the stuff that you've invented, you can have that affect you and create this loop. So does anyone have any thoughts or questions about that? Or did I explain that well enough? It seems to be landed pretty well. Now, what do you think artificial intelligence can do on this loop? Whoops. What can it do? I'd say every step requires intelligence. Every single one. But there is a question of where do we fall into this? Where does artificial intelligence fall into this? And why? And it starts to become pretty clear when you think about the simple thing of, can it actually produce something in the real world? No. So we can try give it knowledge, and it to produce something, but we have to give it that knowledge. The other thing that I see is a big problem that a lot of people try to use artificial intelligence for is that they put in information and knowledge and expect invention to happen. That's not going to happen. It's not. It's going to be pure chance. The way that these learning algorithms work is very different to how our learning algorithms work, how we learn. We actually can't even think or see something without us relearning. Our brain's continuously evolving and learning. Whereas artificial intelligence was trained in advance, and that's where it is, and then you fire it up and it's alive and then it dies. So it can't really be affected immediately in the same sort of timescales that we can. So I would say that in the future it might be the case where we get different computation to allow us to do that, but not right now. I would say that artificial intelligence can automate this for you. And that's about it. It can't really do much else. That's what large language models do. You put in data, information, language, and it actually starts to create structure and meaning to it internally. And then it spits back stuff at you. They really are smart. GPT-4o, when that came out and it started asking me salient questions, I'm like, this is really, really quite intelligent. But it's working. I make sure that I work with it in a space down here, never in a space of it wanting to try produce something, or can try get it to produce something for me, but it takes effort. We can do things to get this happening. And that's what a lot of MEOS is all about, and that I might talk about later. But there's absolutely no way that this will happen. And that's where we as human beings will always likely sit. And more importantly, as we move forward in the future of work, that work is going to get more and more important. And this is where I speak about know what, know how, and know why. So know what, as it sounds, is kind of just like your knowledge. I know what to do. And once you produce it a lot, then you kind of get a bit of the know-how to do it. And then further, why did we even do it in the first place? This is a way of thinking that when we have artificial intelligence now being able to do this stuff at the bottom, which we can really let it help us do that, it frees up the space for us human beings to do what we're truly good at, which is at the top here. Does anyone have any experiences with artificial intelligence that they thought was really radical or really surprising? Yeah?
Yeah, I was sort of introduced to the concept of generative AI by being directed to, it used to be on Netflix, I think it's on YouTube now, AlphaGo, where Google DeepMind took on the task of trying to beat the number one Go player. Go's been around for 4,000 years apparently, and I'd have thought I'd be bored as hell watching this thing, but that idea of the system playing more games of Go than all of human history playing Go for over 4,000 years, and then coming up with a move that Go players described as beautiful, that was a real sort of signifier to me that, will it be possible in the future that sort of strategies or proposals that humans hadn't kind of considered before at least come into play for us to kind of consider?
Yeah. I think finding beauty is something as a scientist we always kind of do once you get enough into it, because that's actually what I use to find my way towards truth and elegance, especially in mathematics. AlphaGo used a algorithm, Monte Carlo search. It basically was a huge thing that essentially encoded every possible move in a very efficient mannerism, and they compress it. Another way to think of LLMs actually is, and machine learning, this is a compression algorithm. We've compressed all of the words like Babel, and then you put in a little bit of a code, and that's like the little key to decompress, and it debabbles. I think what really excited me was actually earlier this year, was when the open source models started coming out, and they were small. They were tiny. This means that we're no longer really talking about compression and like babbling out something, but it's actually got, I talk to it and it's still kind of reasonable. That to me is showing that we're actually clawing away out the knowledge. We're taking away the knowledge inside the model, and we're just being left with the little algorithm that is able to make meaning by whatever we give it. It's really crap at being able to like give you information. But if you put the information in, it can make sense of that information. And that being done in a really small and elegant way, I think is very exciting. And that's something that allows us to explore our information better. And AlphaGo is in a way kind of allowed us to explore the entire space of Go in a way. I've had machine learning and AI really groundbreaking. Like I remember when it first was released, ChatGPT was first released, and I asked it to make some code of an idea that I had that was a really cool idea. And it just punched it out immediately, and I read it, and I'm like, that's halfway, more than halfway there. That's exactly what I would type anyway. And that's awesome. But I had to give it the idea. I really had to give it that idea. So when we're talking about making agents, or when we're talking about our staff using AI, remembering at the best they can do this. They can create definitions internally for words that we give it. That's the crux of the intelligence aspect that's hidden inside of this. Everything else where it's producing stuff, that actually comes from us shoving in human knowledge and it having it in context for us to really give it that ability to do it. So I thought about this a lot. I basically had a 2-year-ish sabbatical after I sold my first company, Thorm, until now. Really, I wanted to do something way more ambitious and risky than a consultancy. I wanted to see how can I use artificial intelligence as the substrate to our technology rather than it just being a tool, because I think there's something more in there. And I kept coming back to this idea of substrate of knowledge, because we now have this machine does this automatically. Done. It's there. It's cool. What do you build on top of that? It becomes obvious. I need to build a way for us to move knowledge around. How do we actually use AI effectively? It's when we are able to give it good knowledge. Importantly, if we are talking about guardrails and risk and worrying about it trying to do things that are not meant to do, well, then maybe we're asking it to do these things up here. Maybe we should just not. Maybe we should try to design our systems and design our code knowing that it can only produce these inputs and outputs. Or if we want to try and make it do more, make sure we have a really good idea of this layer here, what we're doing here, human injection here to producing that. That's something that I then thought about a lot. And this is where I really do believe we're in a new age of computing, and where we're moving beyond just needing to save the data. We can actually have a native layer and use large language models to save the knowledge. And this really, I kept sticking on this. What can I do with that? What can I do with that? And the first thing I got to was this research project that I had called Qualia. I realized it was possible to actually analyze and recognize how a person works, to get a capture of their know-how. Because remember, as long as I give the right knowledge to these AI, they will be able to start producing. But if I give the wrong one, it won't. It becomes, how do you give that to it natively? What do you give to it, and how do you automate doing that? Was the question that I wanted to look at, to make sure that it was really becoming this new layer rather than just AI slavery. So qualia, the idea of that, if anyone knows what qualia means, I apologize, but it just means that it's your subjective state of being. It's like my red is different to your red is an example of our qualia. So we each have a different qualia. So I got this idea and I brought it with my co-founder, May. We were both thinking in the same place. I was thinking about this as, oh, cool, I can capture people's know-how and then be able to make a second brain to be able to connect to an enterprise LLM. All of a sudden, I can consult myself out 1,000 times across the world. Whereas May was really interested as well in allowing us to be able to sit in this state, allow people to be in the state of creativity, which is another, actually really interestingly, the day I met May was at a deep tech conference. And I wrote down what I want to build is to allow people to create and chase their own butterflies, allow human beings to be able to automatically sit on the know, think about their know why and know how, get that as the things they produce. So with that, we can then allow to give it to our artificial intelligence. So what we actually did is built this AI native operating system, which is where I believe that we will be moving forward eventually. We will be probably pretty soon. Instead of saving files, we save ideas. Instead of worrying about what you name something, where to get something, if you want to put information in onto your system in your computer, it is there, you can rely on it to be there, and you recall it. We know that AI can do this. This is probably what the future of work is going to be, and people and intelligent people in their workplaces, people worried about losing their jobs, they're actually going to be shifted to be a lot more creative, and for us to be able to allow us to be more creative and to recognize our differences and how they can be able to work together. So I'll leave it at that. There's a link there for Mios, which you can download. It's completely private, and there's a lot of cool security features in there as well. The beautiful thing about it, I find, is this was a prototype that May, my co-founder, made that we then built up into this concept of an operating system and really trying to change the taste and how it kind of works. I really wanted to make sure the guardrails that I put in there are that you can try use it to produce things and it will do it, but I'm going to put more guardrails in that you can't, because it's really about allowing you to be able to move your attention away from your computer. Why do we spend all of our time emailing and sending documents when really we should be sharing our ideas? And everything can come up to you and is revealed to you. What really excited me when I was using Mios, this own product, it's a very simple mindset shift of using AI, was when I was writing in some insights of mine, some thoughts or a problem, and as a quick note, that's all it is, it's quick notes. Then all of a sudden, what happened is it rose something that actually answered my own question that I forgot about. And I thought I'm really good at remembering things. But this is really good at reminding us what we have forgotten. And it's really good at remembering what we think we remember, and showing us what we haven't. I think that this is really starting to be a lot more what the younger generation as well is starting to use artificial intelligence as, more and more like our operating systems. So we can really focus on what we are going to be doing, what we're going to be doing in the real world. And again, when you're building systems and frameworks in your enterprise and organization, just remember what it is that AI can do, what it is that AI can't do, that barrier, and just design your system that way. And Mios is a really good example of an artificial intelligence application that will be pretty grounded and safe in that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, we can spend the rest of the conference playing with the new tools. Fabulous. But I think we should give the audience time for a couple of questions. We also have our online participants who I know are sitting out there in cyberspace somewhere, and wondered if if you're online and would like to ask a question, you can put it into the into the tool and we'll be able to see it. So if you'd like to do that, I can pick up your question. If you've got any problems scanning the code, it should be in the link that you have before you. So anybody online who'd like a question, send it through. And while we're waiting for our online participants, we've also got a chance for the audience to ask a question or two if they have one. Otherwise, it's me. So while you're thinking, do you have a question in the audience? It's like, yes, we do. Fabulous.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Aqeel, for grounding us on this continent to begin with. My question is about diffusion, and this is, it sounds great and you're thinking in the right direction, but on Thursday morning I'll go back to my office and I'll end up with okay, now what? So from your perspective, from the outside of government world, what are the infrastructural bits or what are the products that could actually help us try to get closer to using a tool like this rather than just procuring a tool like this and having it sit there amongst all of our other underutilized tools?
Thank you for your question. That's great. The synth role manifesto, the one that I wrote at the start, that goes into this. It's about job crafting your position with that tool, just recognizing actually ground up what is bit by bit you can use. But it's also to have somebody in your organization that is like your synth role manager, basically having a champion per floor that really understands how these tools are going to be used for that person and making sure that that tool is serving that person. So genuinely introducing somebody like that is like a HR thing that is about the relationship between them using that tool and in their workday and that tool performing for them in that workday. So that is what I suggested as something that could scale in an enterprise and in a large corporate environment. Because it is an issue. It's otherwise like you just get into the monotony. But that's fine. You just need to make sure that we're grassroots working on the tool there. Because it's really, we shouldn't be, I talk about it in synth roles as well. I call them YAPs, yet another AI product. Like yet another AI product's not going to solve your problem. It's going to be actually just gradually bit by bit.
And we've probably got time for one more question. You can put that in Slido or you can put your hand up if you have a question. And I think that means that the question is me. I'm really interested in your thoughts about, this idea of almost storing and curating our ideas.
Yes.
That we can do with them is delightful, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I guess my question is, what would you say to the person who's perhaps an older person like me, who's sitting in a sort of white-collar job where they're going, my job isn't to be creative, and actually I think this tool's just going to replace me.
If they're not
your tool.
doing anything with their hands, then yes, we have to acknowledge that people can get replaced. But it's unlikely that they would get replaced. They probably do have a role. Everyone does have a good role, and they might not need to use the tool. My parents use it for fun. It's honestly just a fun thing to use because you start to learn and have the ability. It's like a magic notebook that automatically organizes that you can chat to. And that's really where it can start to help.
Tremendously optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe like will they get automated? Probably not.
Is that me sitting in the wrong place? Sorry, it's okay? Yeah, great. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, if you would like to join me in thanking our lovely opening speaker,